Hi, my name is Bryson, and I'm the Head of Development at the cloud computing and IT services company Ironmark. I've been with Ironmark now for 23 years, since just after it began, and it was my first IT job after leaving university. So you could say that I've pretty much grown up with the company. My journey into being a developer was not the most conventional one. When I was at school, I really enjoyed most of my subjects, especially problem-solving subjects like maths and physics, but what I was most passionate about was music. At that time though, if you earned good grades, you were encouraged to go into medicine or law, but I knew I didn't want to work in those fields. The problem was that I just didn't know what else I would enjoy or like to do, so I decided that I would follow my heart and go to university to study music. Over the course of the next 4 years, I found myself working more and more with computers combined with music, and we were very fortunate that our course was actually really advanced in terms of the technology we were exposed to. It's still quite amazing to think that there was a room full of music students trying to use computer programming to create pieces of music. As I was nearing the end of my degree, however, I still didn't have a clue what I would do when I finished. A lot of my friends were going into teaching, but that wasn't really for me. And purely by chance, a friend who'd studied music with me before told me about a course that he'd just completed. He knew how much I enjoyed working with computers and how I was always the person people would ask when they're having problems with them. So he just thought I would love the course. I looked into it and it sounded interesting, so with no other ideas of what I could do, I decided to give it a shot. Before the course started, everyone who was from a non-computing programming background had to complete a 3-week crash course. It was during these 3 weeks that I first realised how fun and interesting programming could be. I love being able to look at a problem and then, using logic and my problem-solving skills, write code which would solve it. It was great seeing the end result as well, so a few lines of code and you could produce something quite amazing. Of course, programming was only one of the many subjects we covered in the course. We did networks, artificial intelligence, databases, but I was always drawn back to programming. Interestingly though, my final project to get my master's wasn't actually a programming project, but it did allow me to use my other interests in art and media for a very interesting project. The geology department at the university had lots of fossil specimens, and they wanted someone to take one of their fossils and create a 3D reconstruction of what it would have looked like when it was alive all those millions of years ago. I had great fun working with state-of-the-art equipment to first create a 3D image of the fossil and then using technology to strip away the stone it was encased in and to show how it might have looked. I was very proud of how it turned out, and you can imagine I was over the moon when I saw it on screen at a university recruitment event a few years after graduating. After I completed my postgraduate, I applied for a few different graduate jobs and even had a few interesting offers. One company actually offered me a job working on programming training systems for submarines, but as it meant a move down to the south of England, I chose not to accept. And that turned out to not be a bad decision, as not long after that I accepted a role at Ironmark as a junior developer. When I first started there, they were in the throes of launching Manage the Fish, which is one of the early internet service providers. There was no Wi-Fi or broadband back then. You had to use your home phone to connect to the internet. It was very slow. I had the fun task of working on our website to make online games and interactive content so that our users would keep coming back to the site to see what was new and to make it as exciting and interesting as possible. I spent most of my time working with our designer and website editor, and I tried to learn as much as possible from them too about how they worked. One thing that I realised very quickly was that it was always worth learning how to do tasks yourself, as then you'd understand what was required and how long it might take. At this point as well, we were still a very small company, only about 20 people, so it's good to be able to help out if you could. As the company grew, I became more involved with other parts of the systems and was given more responsibility for working on bigger coding projects, and ultimately moved on to manage the development team, which I'm still doing now. A large part of being a developer is looking at the bigger picture and understanding not just what it is you're trying to do, but what effect that might have on other things. I quickly realised how important it was to make sure I asked lots of questions and look at things from many different angles. And this is the thing I probably love most about my job. Every day we're given new problems to solve, and it's my job to work with my team to find the best solution and then make it work. It's not always easy, but then if it was, it'd be boring. These days, everybody wants to be able to do their jobs online or, make things really easy. So that's our job. We have to make it as straightforward as possible. I still love to learn everything, new languages, new skills, even ones that don't relate to my own job. But I think that makes me a much better developer. Our company is now over 400 people, and I still like to learn, what the other jobs entail, because then I think it makes me a better developer. The languages that I use today are not the ones that I learned in university, and that's something that I think is really important to learn. You won't always learn everything you need for a role in university, but you can learn it when you're on the job. I've learned so much since I started at Ironmark, and the one thing that I would say is it's always changing. People ask me, why have you stayed there so long? But it's never, that no day is the same, and it's always a new challenge and a new problem to solve. So, I think one thing I would say is you won't always know what you like when you're at university or school. When I was doing my postgraduate, I hated databases, really didn't enjoy it. And it was only once I actually started working in my current role that I realised that actually they're the basis of so many of the things that I work on. And I actually now really love working with them. It just took using them in a real life situation to see that actually they could be quite interesting. Another thing to remember is that just because you don't think of yourself as being a techie person doesn't mean you won't be a good programmer. If you've got the desire to ask questions, to solve problems, to think about things logically, then you can be a really good developer. Learning the programming languages themselves comes as a second thing, that's almost like the less important part. And also don't pigeonhole. Don't try to pigeonhole yourself. Don't try and think of what specific area you want to work in. I think it's good to go out and try different things and see what it is you actually enjoy and find challenging, and then take it from there. Anyway, thank you for listening.